Hey, good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the award winning recovery podcast, Get in the Herd, brought to you by the McShin Foundation. I'm your host today, Nathan Mitchell, and we are joined today by I was thinking before the show, what do I want to call you? Vivacious, exuberant, so full of life and energy that I'm just like so eager to talk to you more. Um, Carolina Ayala. Did I say that correctly?
You did, Nathan. Thank you.
Welcome to the
Yes.
show. Um, you're calling from California, so I know it's still morning there. So I'll say good morning. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon here. And I see that you're in your car. I love that. Multitasking. Tell me, how's it going? What's going on with you?
First of all, hi, Nathan. Thank you so much for having me here. It's great to see you again. Yes, I'm in my car. This is my mobile office. Pretty much, I'm in it all the time, every day, every webinar that I'm in, any training that I'm in. Everybody knows I'm in the car. So it's kind of funny. It's a running joke. But things are going good out here in Cali, Riverside County. I think I was up there at McShin in November, if I remember correctly, visiting you guys. And the Happier Life Project, our RCO out here, is, slowly but surely plugging away. The movement of peers is moving out here in California, fortunately. Yes, I know the power of the peer. So just staying, on top of that and making sure that we grow with it is kind of where we're at. A lot of changes,
That's awesome.
personally
Yeah.
and in work. Yeah. So.
Well, so you are the founder and executive director of excuse me, the Happier Life. I There's an organization similar named here. That's why I'm stumbled over it. The Happier Life Project,
Mhm.
and I'm excited about this because I know that when we talked when you were here in, I guess, November, things were very fresh. So how have things progressed in your RCO building as the founder slash executive director slash you have a whole board of people?
Well, I think it was still a lot of ideas when I was over there, and just kind of, I check off a lot of boxes as far as like, women formerly incarcerated, substance use, mental health challenges, bilingual, Native American. And it's like, let's help everybody, right? And it's so diverse in this county that we're able to do that. But when I went to go see you guys, I was still trying to put together everything. It wasn't really laid out with the strategic plan as it is now. I have a board. I have a board of incredible women, and we actually have people on staff now. I'm actually on staff now, so I was able to be hired as the ED. That just happened in March.
Yeah.
And we've got three peer supports that are amazing. Two women, one guy, myself. Also, I do it in Spanish and English, and just a team of volunteers, that are ready and willing to help. We just have to grow a little bit more. I'm in a county where the county provides peer support within treatment, within the mental health space. So really finding that, being that voice of community where RCOs really shine, is kind of where we're at. So a lot of listening sessions, a lot of letting people hear who we are and how we work in the ecosystem of recovery.
I I thank you for sharing that, and I want to read what I'm sure you'll know as you. The Happier Life Project is a excuse me. The Happier Life Project is a recovery community organization that shifts perspective. I love that. Reduces stigma and provides hope around recovery. Our foundation of peer to peer relationships lets us meet people on their chosen pathway of healing and support them in discovering the answers to their wellness. Combining evidence based practices with a holistic approach, we connect our peers to a reliable network of services and share our lived experience that recovery is possible and everyone can achieve a happier life. That is so beautifully said. And I when I read Shift's perspective, I immediately, and I just read that this morning, and I went, "Oh, I'm stealing that." So I will give you credit every time because I'm using that, because there's three things together, and I will use that. But I
Thank you.
love what you said there. Where are you finding that your support is best delivered? How are you get meeting your clients? Where are you meeting them from?
So it's really diverse. I mean, it's been so I work with like the parole department
Hmm.
quite a bit. It was interesting. Just like a week and a half ago, I was in Moreno Valley participating in a peace and justice summit with other organizations that are specific to the reentry population. And I was there and I opened up with the land acknowledgement. And I realized when I was on stage, like, I used to report to parole 20 years ago in this building. That was pretty awesome, like that was really, really awesome. So, and just before the podcast, I was in a conversation with a huge organization that, again, specifically with reentry, discussing how the Happier Life Project can assist the people that they're already serving through their homes in reentry and helping people become employed, the job skills. Um, People aren't really saying, like, hey, I need peer support. They're like, hey, I need a job. Right.
Right.
And so it's like, yeah, but now let's talk about further in that, like what is your, your where you're staying at? Like, are you able to have enough rest to wake up in the morning to go to work? Sometimes people don't think about that just because they have a roof over their head. Or like, how am I going to get to work? Or I'm feeling a little bit nervous. Just being there as a support alongside them is really important, I think, for anybody coming out of incarceration. So that's like a sweet spot for me. Like, my heart is there. Also, people that are in recovery already that need additional support in other areas of their life. For
Okay.
example, like my chosen pathway is 12 steps. However, I have a coach as well. I have a recovery coach, because my sponsor to me is there to walk me through the steps,
Hmm.
and that's all. And my coach helps me with other things in life, the other dimensions of Carolina. And so people that are already in recovery, that are in recovery are really reaching out for peer support now, and it's really cool to watch it grow, little by
I,
little.
I love that you just made the distinction, because you actually just you made me think about my relationship with my sponsor, because my chosen pathway is 12 step as well. And I do also go to Recovery Dharma, which is the Buddhist inspired pathway,
And
which dovetails, for me, it dovetails. They're just nice together. They're wonderful together. My sponsor, though, is actually in the field. She is a certified peer recovery specialist. So she
yeah,
and I, she works in what I do. So it's funny because I use, we talk on one time at one level. We talk as professional, right, to each other, and then on another level, of course, she works me through steps. We do well. I ignore step work, and no, I do step work with her, right? And then on a separate level, we both actually, we sometimes seesaw between me getting information from her, like in this field, and her coming to me for information in this field. It's really interesting that we have that extra dynamic. I'm really grateful for it, actually.
yeah,
Um, but you're right. Like having that recovery coach, even as a person who's in, has some sustained recovery, is important. And I never really thought of that until you just brought that up.
yeah,
Because of course it doesn't end. It doesn't,
yeah,
it's not like, oh, I'm recovered. I've,
yeah,
I've recovered from the severe use, and now I'm in recovery.
yeah.
Um, that's
Yeah,
really,
I
I'm
mean,
glad you brought that.
because I thought about it like in the sense of, we're not just addressing, and this is where harm reduction comes into it for me,
Mm,
right? Like, there was a place and time where I struggled to get on that other side for 12 steps, right? Of what was required, right? For me to be there in my mind.
yeah.
And I stayed sick without any support in that spot because I wasn't on the other side. And so I think it's really, really important for people that are in that space that are not ready to be abstinent per se, that can have people that can meet them where they're at, non judgmental, and still offer support in other areas of your life. Like, I'm not just here to be like, okay, you need to be in recovery.
Yeah.
No, some people choose not to. And you know what? And they're successful. Some people are not. It's very self directed. And so, really meeting people where they're at with what they want to do. For me, it was really important to be on the other end because if we're going to be providing something, I want to know what that's like and how that benefits me. Also,
Mm,
like where does it help me so I can see on the other end, not just providing it, but also receiving it. And it's been huge for me because I get to work on all the other areas of my life, and it doesn't matter where you're at in recovery. Like, I think we can all use some support.
yeah. So you mentioned that you're moving today.
Yes, it's been a process over probably the last month, but mainly over the last few days. I've lived in the same place for 7 years. Same relationship with my son, and things are just going on a different route now.
Oh,
Um, yeah, yeah, they are. I have found that I no longer, I don't know, it's interesting because here I am, right? Peer support, meeting people where they're
yeah,
at, letting people find their own chosen pathway. And in my home, it's not happening. And
yeah,
so it's like, ooh, ouch, right? But I've got to let it go. I let it go. I'm not in control. And I have to respect the soul's choice.
yeah.
That's it, you
That's
know?
beautiful. Yeah. That is beautifully said. I apologize. I didn't really quite know that
No,
that's where that was going with that question. So,
no
um,
worries.
and I don't usually ask questions I don't already know the answer to generally. So, but good for you. I really applaud you for sharing that. One of the things that when I work with our participants here, we have houses, and so we now have 15 houses. We have and it's insane. I know it's
I love,
wonderfully insane,
I
and
love it.
I do too. And we're full, and this place is real. It's awesome. And I actually went over to. I think when you were here, I think I'm pointing over here, like you can see, but our intensive house is like right across the parking lot over here, and I'm
Yes.
not sure if you went over there, but I'm sure we pointed it out to you.
Hmm.
And I used to stop by there like at least twice a week, and it had been a while until yesterday. And I've had car issues, and I've had my mom is transitioning from where she lives about an hour and a half from here to closer by, and she'll be right near
Nice.
my sister. And it's a new chapter in my mom's life, and she's not ready to retire yet, but it's like it's a chapter,
Hmm.
and it's a new chapter. And it also the way that affects me is because it's stuff. But before I got into recovery, I had a whole bunch of stuff. Essentially, it's just stuff that ended up at my mom's house in the basement, right? And she's been housing
Ah,
this. Yeah, so you see where I'm going with this. So she's been
yeah.
warehousing my pre-recovery stuff there, and it's just been sitting there literally compartmentalized. And she's so like, my mother is a saint. I don't know how she had
Oh,
me, but she's got it all in beautiful. I mean, like, this actually, my mother and I know this. I know that I'm her child because I'm the same way. But all of the stuff is in the same exact Rubbermaid containers, and they're stacked and they're neat and they're clean, and
oh,
it's ridiculously organized. And I'm like, oh, and I'm like, I was terrified to go into it because right as like the last thing I did before I left, that most of that stuff was get arrested. My mom
wow.
had to go into the city, into DC, and pick up all my stuff from my office where I live, where I was basically living out of this office where I worked. Anyway, well, long story as short as I can make this. Um, I brought home most of that stuff to where I live now in Richmond on Easter Sunday. And for 2 weeks, I've been kind of struggling to go through this stuff because the emotional. I mean, I knew it was going to be emotional. I didn't realize the emotional attachment to my mom and this transition because it's a big transition for her too. Um, moving down here. She's bought the house here. She hasn't sold her house up there yet. Um, God bless her. I don't know how she can do that. I can barely pay the rent on time, but but like I've been going through this stuff, and it feels like it I can feel the I can feel a lot of the old coming and
Yeah.
trying to
It
come at
carries
me.
energy.
Yeah.
Everything has the energy, and it's with it, and that's what thank you for sharing that. Like, I absolutely understand what you're talking about. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, no, no. Well, and the reason I say that is because like I feel like the pool of wanting to get back into the remorse and the pity me and the oh my
Mm,
gosh. And I wish I mean, like, I've got all these tools in recovery, and like, I don't want to use them. I don't want anybody there. And I'm like, go, leave me alone. My mom was with me when I first went through the stuff. Like, I went right to the stuff where I knew there might be drugs because that was like one of my biggest
yeah.
concerns was, that I would.
Finding.
Yeah, and I found I found alcohol actually a
Wow.
couple times. Yeah, and here's the funny thing. I found a flask and I didn't dump it out right away. I left it till the next day. Oh, and
Mm,
did I think about it?
mm,
I'm like, oh, that was really expensive Irish whiskey, and I know it's good. And
yeah.
I'm literally salivating thinking about it. So it's like I recognize that as a peer in recovery, like and who works as a peer to support others in recovery. What you're telling me is, I need to make sure that I'm taking care of myself too.
Yeah.
Which means looking at those really making these really hard choices. Like 7 years is a long time, and it's like, wow, what a catharsis. And for me, okay, it was 2 weeks of this nonsense for me, and finally Sunday, I keep a meticulous bedroom, like it's nice and clean. You can eat off the floor, and that's just me. It's like it gives me the only sense of control that Nathan has over Nathan, right?
Mm.
And it's been a mess for 2 weeks, and it's been coming out. It's been coming out in all kinds of ways. And Sunday, I was
Isn't
just like,
that interesting how
oh my
it
god.
happens?
Yes, and yeah, I was like, "F this" on Sunday, and I'm just like, "Grr, grr, grr," and I just cleaned and scrubbed and washed and this and then and I still have stuff to go through, but it's organized chaos
Yeah.
better, and
Yeah.
I need it. I need
Yeah.
to take
You're
care of myself.
you're better than I am in that sense, because
Mm,
I realized quickly as I was packing stuff up, right? Um, that I had some stuff there that was literally in the same, suitcase, from 7 years ago, that had never been touched, and I could not just like throw it away. There's nothing in there I need.
yeah,
Nothing. I haven't
yeah.
looked at it in 7 years. What am I doing? And I could not find myself to do it. And I could feel the energy. Like, I don't know what that's about. And so I made the decision that, like, okay, I need to move everything out. I'm just gonna put it in some totes, put it in the storage, and none of this is going into the new place. Now, where's the new place? God hasn't revealed that yet. um, but nothing is going to go into the new place unless it has a purpose and a place.
Mm,
And doing that with a 6-year-old is not easy when there's
yeah.
toys from years and years, and I'm like, oh my goodness. But one interesting thing that I came across was some of my old notebooks from
Mm.
recovery. Uh, so I have this thing, like, I don't know, this trauma I've had about writing, and my writing being found out, because since I was little, like, mom found the diary. When I was
Mm.
married, ex-husband found the diary. Like, I wrote a 4-step, lived in a sober living many years ago, and people saw it, and like, just stuff, right? So I write in different journals, like, across. So there's
Mm.
never like one story in one. It's really interesting. I don't know. That's just what I do.
Yeah.
Um, and I found like a fear inventory. So,
Oh
and when
wow.
I read it, it was really interesting to look at, like, wow, none of these things ever were true. It was such a freedom of, like, wow, where I was at that moment when I was writing it, and the things that I was in fear of were so unwarranted, which is normally, right, false evidence appearing real. Um, but it was a really cool feeling to be on the other side and be like, wow, okay, so things aren't, they're not real from my mind to like what's
Mm.
really going to happen, or things like that. That was really cool to be able to read that and go back years and years and years ago, and see that there was nothing behind it. But this moving thing is a process, not done, but got a lot of it taken care of today. in the U-Haul. So going back, putting more things in the storage, and houses are going really quickly out here. So
Mm.
yeah, I like
Well,
that.
I thank you. I love that you just shared all that. And you know, Honesty Liller, our CEO. You know Honesty, right?
Yes, yes.
You're part of ARCO, is that correct? The Association of Recovery.
We actually applied for ARCO last
Okay.
month and are in the process of getting approved.
Are you working with Joseph? Joseph
Um,
Hogan Sanchez
I wasn't. I was actually
or Sanchez?
speaking with Philip,
Oh,
Mariana, uh,
yeah.
with them. Yes, I go through quite a bit of the trainings. That's how I started. So with the whole RCO, basically, like the way that that began for me was there was interesting story. Uh, there was a calling for me for a while already, right, to start a nonprofit. I just had no idea like how I was going to do it, and it's been for years and years. And not to get too much into it, but as a direct result of my drug and alcohol use, some other things have happened in my life many years ago that were very, very unfortunate, and I was completely responsible for. So I have this, angel that's always at my side and has been at my side since 1999, and her name is Crystal. And I inadvertently ended up in some office called an Optimal U in Marietta by accident. And I was in the wrong place. Turns out I wasn't in the wrong place. I was there, and there was a woman that needed some help in recovery that I just connected to. And and in that, I met another woman that I later came to see who was a psychic medium. Okay. Never gone to one before. Don't even know if I believe, just did it. Right. And immediately it was like Crystal came through, my daughter,
Mm.
and said, Mom, you need to start the nonprofit. You're going to help so many people. And I instantly just crying. Nobody knew that. Nobody knew that. And after that, it was like any chains that I had, anything that was holding me back, self, right? Because it was all self, just fell off. And it was like green lights since then. Open
Mm.
doors, green lights, this way, pass go, all of that. Divine intervention in every way, shape, or form. Like it was just beautiful. Like literally the month that we received the 501c3 was the month that we received our first grant from the Department of Healthcare Services. Like
Wow.
that same month, it was like, wow. And people were like, Carolina, startup grants don't happen from the Department of Healthcare Services. And I was like, yeah, I know. Like this is huge. And
Yeah.
I was in a outpatient by the county in Riverside, and I saw the anonymous people,
Mm. Mm.
and that's where Favor and McShin. And that's why I went out to go see McShin,
Mm.
because I had to be there. I had to feel it. I wanted to see, I wanted to be immersed in it. And I was so grateful to get to do that, you know?
Yeah.
And from there was when I reached out to Faces and Voices of Recovery. I reached out to other RCOs and just started learning about this thing that I didn't know existed already, because it wasn't happening in California. It wasn't happening out here. But it was happening in other parts of the United States. And I was like, why is why is that not happening out here? So it's been a really awesome journey.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that because being here on the daily, and being in this building is special. It's special. There's constantly, there's constantly an atmosphere for the opportunity of hope and love and healing and caring, and I'm
Mm.
still me, and I bring me to the table all the time, and I'm still, you know, ego and all the fears, all the character defects come in, and sometimes it's like I come in here and I'm like, oh, this again, that person again, and I you know I'm so grateful that like I get to meet people like you, but also I work with people who do that too, but in the but know the or I guess maybe they don't do that. I don't know, but believe in that higher power, in that power greater themselves. Where it's like actually, you know, this is where it's supposed to be. This is what's supposed to be happening right here in this moment. And you can accept that or not. It's still going to happen that way, and find a way to be in the solution. And so I really work with amazing people, and I bring up honesty because I think you probably know this, but she just wrote her book.
Right.
It just
Yes.
got published, and I think about, because she jokes with me right after she published, like, "All right, your turn now," and I'm like, I need some time. And I read her book, and it's very honest, and she talks about things that, and I'm like, I don't know that I want to write that book when my mother's alive. And
Oh,
I love my mom, but I don't want my mom to read some of this stuff.
mm,
And but I also don't want to live a life that I can't share with my. So I'm like, I'm now torn. Like, I'm in this, like, it's
yeah.
this other new phase. I'm so glad she wrote her book because it's amazing, and I read that, and the power of it,
Gotta
and
read it.
I have you read it?
No, not yet. I'm
Oh, we'll
going
have
to.
to get you a copy. Yeah.
Yep.
Because she tells she's I mean, honesty is just this beautiful, beautiful, beautiful soul, and she tells this story, and she tells her, she's just her. It's her, and I know honesty well enough. That I've known most of that I knew in the story, but the content a little. It's just nice to have that. And I'm just like, wow, how freeing is that to be able to do that and be like, I don't give a crap what you think, you
Yeah,
know, and to
exactly.
be there to live in that truth. And
In your
you know
truth. To thine own
what
self be true.
to thine own self be true. So I think about that, and I think about what you talk about in the Happier Life Project, right? So the what is it that it said up here? You describe yourself as, I just lost it. I'm sorry.
No worries.
Contact. Um, Meet our board. This I love this because I'm going to read you a brief from your bio here, and I wrote this in the in the description of the show. You are the founder and executive director of the Happier Life Project, as a trauma-informed certified peer coach, facilitator, and advocate for the recovery community in Riverside County. And so what I want to ask about that is, what does it mean to be trauma informed? And that, because that term is used a lot, but for those who are listening, and maybe are thinking about, getting into this, and what is peer recovery coaching, and how it differs from being a 12-step sponsor or sponsee, where does the trauma informed come from, and how does that play into the work that you do? It seems like it
So
plays into it a lot.
it does. So I guess I can give you like examples. Like you were talking about showing up to work and sometimes being like, oh, this person again, or, when you're doing it on a daily, right, it can get sometimes monotonous, or, or maybe you're losing the hope, right? Or you see things that are just repetitive with other people. And I think of like self, right? So I began this journey of, um, I went through a lot of trauma as a child, right? And so started acting out really, really young, and began using drugs and alcohol at the age of 12. So in that, like when I say trauma informed, it's like we work with people that I can almost say 100% have all gone through some form of trauma. And it's so easy to be, and I've experienced this, right? Where people are just like, just stop, like, or do this or do that, like just telling you what you're doing wrong and how to do it right, and re-triggering some of my traumas that they have no idea. Like, you have no idea. They think they're just trying to help, right? Like, because they don't know, like, nobody knows where another person is coming from through their own experience. Like, there's no way of ever knowing what another person has gone through. And so the way that you address that and the way that you are with people is super, super important. Like, being sensitive to the traumas that you may not have experienced, but other people have. And that happens a lot, I think. I'm going to go back to the reentry population. I didn't realize how much trauma I'd gone through by being incarcerated. Like, I started that journey when I was 18 years old. I'm 43 now. I started when I was 18 years old, and I've done about 10 to 11 years of my life incarcerated, from federal to state to county, all of that. And when I was doing some writing just recently and working a lot with the justice impacted population, it hit me like how much trauma there actually was there, and how dismissive as a society and as an individual, even myself, was with that. And not even realizing that I was re-triggering myself in some of these things, like not just other people but me myself doing that. So it's not an easy thing to do. Like there's trauma informed and then being trauma responsive,
Mm.
right? Like even things of like, I like to hug people, right? That's not okay in certain spaces that you're in, depending on who you're working with. Some people get very standoffish, or some people, like, that's been. So being informed of who you're working with and what may have happened or occurred, and sometimes just asking permission for things,
Yeah.
on what you're saying, and just, I don't know, it's just being very mindful, being very, very mindful of who you're working with, who you're supporting, and how you're addressing certain things, because you don't want to re-trigger anybody, and re-traumatize anybody. And sometimes we do that inadvertently when people are trying to help,
Yeah.
not that we do it on purpose, right? But you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Um, there was something that you said that I wanted to. Oh, so when you're working in the space of the RCO, right, and you're seeing people and they're coming, and some people get it right away, some people don't, and some you want them to, and some are little knuckleheads or whatever. Like I think of my own journey, and you just don't ever know what it's gonna be, right? Like for me, all the outside stuff, like constantly lost family, lost prison, self esteem, respect, everything about me, right? Broken. You think of like, there's just no way I'm going to go back to drinking and using. Like, everything's been stripped. I've given everything. I've given, a child to CPS, gotten them back. I've abandoned that, that oldest daughter that's 27. I stepped away from that family, because of what I was doing, and I thought that was the best thing for me to do, which it turns out at that point it was. Thank God. She's an amazing human being, raised by her grandparents, my ex-husband's family, which unfortunately he died of this disease, incarcerated, but she's a phenomenal human being. But it just, people didn't give up on me. One way, I'd always run into somebody that just believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. And I never understood that. And I'd keep bumping my head up against the wall, get out and go back, and get out and go back. And I had no idea what I was doing. And here, it took some time, but just having somebody that holds out that hope is all that it takes. And you just don't ever know when it's going to be that it just clicks,
Yeah.
or what somebody's going to say, what experience you're going to go through. And I used to think it was about what happened, right? Like, it's not what happened, what's that saying? Like, it's not what's wrong with me, it's what happened to me, kind of thing,
Mm.
is also part of like the trauma informed. I think it's not what's wrong with you, but what happened to you. And being able to look at people instead of
Mhm.
in a reactive mode of like, oh, you're offending me or you're affecting me. It's like, wow, what happened to them that they're the way that they are, or that they're having to respond in that way to me, is another way of looking at it. And it doesn't always happen perfectly, right? But you just do the best that you can. And holding out the hope for other people that, I also facilitate craft in Spanish, which is the community reinforcement family training, right? And it's like they ask those questions. So not only am I the person that was the drinker and the user, now I'm on the other end of having that partner that you want them to get sober, right? And you're going crazy because you want them to get sober and they're just not doing it. It's not your job, and it's never going to work out that way. But I like to let the families know and the parents know, like, don't give up hope. Like, take care of yourself, but don't ever give up hope. You don't ever know what it's going to take, or what it's going to be, or what day that is where everything's going to change. And then it's full throttle the other way. Like that. It just really just changes so drastically sometimes. And I don't know. I love that. I love that. So it's really difficult for me to step away from a relationship or that person has not found their spiritual experience or their psychic change,
Yeah.
and holding that hope, but staying firm with my own boundaries of what I need, what my child needs, and what is okay, but still love them anyways.
Yeah. That's a radical love, you know. Radical love. Yeah. I'm one thing you made me think of something I've been doing lately, and I didn't even realize why I've been doing it. And you know, you've been to McShin, you've been to Hatcher, and my office is right here on the third floor. And most of the action is on the first floor. That's where it's the loudest. And um, I- it's nice to be up here and quiet. Sometimes I need to get back into the chaos, but what I've been doing it a little more lately, and we've also had an uptick in staff and an uptick in peer recovery specialists being on staff here, or coming and getting their hours. In Virginia, you need to get 500 hours to get certified, blah blah blah. And what I realize is I keep going downstairs, and I've been in this building. I actually moved the first day I walked into this building was April 30th, 2018. And so when that was Saturday was the anniversary of that, and I texted. It's not my clean date, but it's not my recovery date, but it's the day I first walked into this building. So I actually texted John and Jesse and Honesty on that day, and it is actually a pretty sacred day for me. That and April 23rd, which is the day I got out of jail the last time, and that whole week where it was definitely not me, but I did not use that week, and and there's so many wonderful. There was just so much God in that, there always is. But anyway, um, since I'm in this building for now 4 years, I go downstairs and I walk through, and so many of the people who are now, getting the hours to be peers are people I've seen the first time they walked in the door. And it is so, or the second or third, or maybe, but when I saw at the worst, and now I get to see them at the best. And it's really, really powerful. It's a testament to what has been built here, with this incredible group of people that said, a couple years ago, 18 years ago, hey, you know what we're doing here is not working. Let's see if we can do something else. And John and Carol saying, all right, McShin, and doing this thing and putting it together, and talk, and bringing William White into it, and the whole model there, and really examining a different way of a different approach to recovery, and bringing it all together. And I get to go see that. Like anytime I'm upstairs and I'm like, this isn't working, I can literally I can walk down to the end of the hall. Actually, I can walk in and talk to Justin, and I can walk and talk to Matt Grant, who I've known since the beginning too, for his, since his beginning. And I can walk to Zach. Oh my, this whole hall, everybody on this floor. I can walk downstairs to the first floor and just, it's just a
Yeah.
tidal wave of amazing. Um, and yeah, that's a McShin thing. I mean, yeah, rah rah. I love this place, and that's where the recovery movement is going. Like that. Like hearing you and hearing people that I get to talk to all the time doing this kind of work, that connection, that peer to peer connection. Right now, we have a whole class of peers being taught. Just across the hall and one flight down, there's probably 15 people in there
I mean, you
training.
know, McShin has been phenomenal. Like, Carol, John, the whole staff. I mean, from the moment that I'm just like calling, I'm like, hi, this is who I am. This is what I want to do. I see you're doing some pretty amazing stuff over there. You've been around forever. Can I come visit? Like, that was like,
Yeah.
can I come? Like, yes, absolutely. And just everything that has been extended out. And I could reach out to anybody over there at any time and get help. I love what you guys are doing over there. And I was just blown away at the fact that I'm like, you guys have been around, I think, since 2004, I
Hmm.
believe.
Yep.
And it just blew me away that we didn't have that here in California,
Yeah.
uh, to that degree, to that level. And it's so beautiful to get to be on the forefront of the peer movement, the 49th state to adopt it as an evidence based practice. I'm like,
Wow.
wow,
Oh,
exactly.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
49th state or 48th, I don't know, one of those two, but it's pretty in the late in the game. Um, it blew me away. It just blew me away. Um, because there's certain things to my own recovery that I've learned throughout my journey that I didn't take all out of 12 steps. Like I only took what applied. There was a lot of other things, the rawness of it, love it, those steps, the spiritual principles, but there's a lot of other things that I just didn't follow or didn't agree with. And when peer support really is laid out, it's like, oh, that's the other thing, that is actually helping me aside from what I'm doing. And I do a lot of other things. You mentioned Dharma recovery. Love it. I've done the smart recovery. Like I like to explore a lot of the different pathways that I hear help other people because it goes to show like there's not just one way ever,
Right.
in recovery, and it's whatever works for you. And I've had to do quite a bit of things. I share this. I did EMDR. I did microcurrent neurofeedback, with complex PTSDs that actually helped me come out of, the fight or flight that my brain, like that I was constantly in. And I could see that with the machine, when I have these little things on my head and it's showing me the brain waves, like, wow, when you see that, you're like, that's where I'm constantly coming from. Like, no wonder I'm all tense and stuff, and getting to learn how to regulate, my emotions, my body, heart math. I love, that's another thing that I love. Um,
Heart math?
Heart math, yes, heart coherence, uh,
Okay.
dropping into heart. I don't know if you've heard, the saying it's the longest distance is from your heart to your head, right? Coming, dropping it down. And not sure if you've ever heard that, but and I
That
probably
makes
didn't
so much it
quote it.
makes sense, yeah.
I probably didn't quote it exactly the way it is, but something like that. So there's this thing called heart math that I like to do that helps like regulate and bring coherence and just breathing exercises. And I love meditation, breath work, Reiki. Like there's so many things out there that are just phenomenal that are there to help people.
I'm Googling heart math as heartmath.com is a website, and, um, and I think it says shop, so I'm gonna have to look more, but,
Now,
um,
definitely,
headquartered in Boulder Creek, California, HeartMath Cal LLC. That's cool, I'm gonna have to look this up.
you should, yes. They
HeartMath
have
Institute is HeartMath.
devices. Yeah, they have little devices that show you, I don't know the exact terminology of what it's called, but you learn to regulate and you could see it, on the device, on your phone, and the calming state, the
Mm,
coherence, the energy, all the energy that we emit around us, people pick up on that and you affect everyone around you, you
yeah.
know, and this how you're operating that day.
I love the ability, um I love learning in recovery that I don't have to absorb other people's energy and reflect that back. And it's, I hear people come in and say, I still, I mean, I do it, and not just, I don't have to do it, but I do it, and I'm catch myself most of the time when I do it. I think I do, and I hear people come in and say, well, I'm just gonna, um, I'm gonna mix up the phrase. What's the phrase I'm looking for? Uh, you come at me, I'm like, nah, there's a phrase I'm thinking of, and I'm totally fluffing it up. But essentially, well, if they come at me wrong, I'm going to come at them wrong, and I'm just like,
Oh yeah, yeah.
wow, why would you want to give so much power to somebody else? And so that's the question I'm constantly asking myself. Why do I want to give? So why do I want to? Why am I? Because it's the fight that I do. When I'm regulating my emotions, is like, why am I giving so much power over to this box of
Well,
clothes that I'm going through, or this person and their negative crap, you know?
and
Why?
it's kind of like what was said earlier about um because I've been working through this a lot, right? It's like you match what you're met with, and a lot of people is like, well, you get treated like you treat people, I don't know, something or the other, right? Like you get treated the way you treat or something. And somebody said this to me the other day, right? Again, the relationship, right? So it's been kind of at odds. And it's like, so you're going to go outside of who you are to the core to just match somebody else with the way that they're being with you. Like, so now you're outside of the human that you are just to give them back what they gave you. Like, how is there any satisfaction in that? Does that feel
Mm.
good? Right? Does
Yeah.
that even feel good? So, taking it a step further for me has been like, ooh, something, irritated me, like, I don't know, scratched something there that I didn't like. And instead, it's like being able, and again, this doesn't happen all the time or perfectly, is like, what is it? What got activated in me, right? From that, because everybody's my mirror, right? Like my mirror. So what do I got to see here that that hasn't been addressed within me that's getting woken up by this other person, right?
Mm.
At the same time, being like, wow, I wonder what happened to them that they're having to be like that, or it has nothing to do with me. Like kind of going back and forth with it, but not being directly in the experience anymore is kind of what I've been working on, is being outside of it and looking at things objectively without letting the emotion just run with it. Because that's where I used to come out of a lot, is just emotion, emotion, emotion.
Whew. Yeah. And how grateful are we to have sponsors and peers in our network and other PRSs or peer recovery specialists who can work with us to help us get back to where we're best for ourselves and best able to serve others. Yeah.
Correct. Yes.
Um,
Pause.
the happierlifeproject.org, www.thehappierlifeproject.org, is actually scrolling at the bottom of the screen right now. If you want to check it out and see what's going on in California, there's some really neat stuff. This is I love this picture of you, by the way, with the phone. I don't. Oh, you haven't seen it yet. So I took
Oh,
that. I took that picture of you and I cleared out the background, so it's just you on the phone, and then and
oh my.
and then and then the other picture of you that's on the website with your hair all beautiful and almost kind of like the Starbucks logo a little bit. Anyway, I mean,
I
obviously you don't have your, it's you're not they're not mermaids because they have two. They're Do you know what they are, Justin? You have no idea what I'm talking about. It's
I
not
know.
a Yeah, she's not a mermaid in the Starbucks thing. She's somebody else. She's something else. Well, put it in the comments if you know what it is. But anyway, what's going on? So what's next for you? Well, before we do that, ask a question. How many people do you serve on a regular basis? That's a question.
So right now, the way it is for us is the biggest people that we serve is going to be in the group setting, right?
Okay.
So we're still working with like, what is peer support out here? How do we get our place? Most of the work that I've been doing now has really been advocating for recovery community organizations,
Nice.
because of the peer support certification. So what's happening in California is like there's a lot of peers working in counties and agencies, and these peer run organizations were being met with things like, well, peer support can only be an adjunct service. So, like, how is it even effective? So, it's really like educating people on how this actually works in breaking space here as an RCO. There's six
Mm,
of us throughout the state of California. That's been where most of my work has actually been, is sitting in these state meetings and these listening sessions, advocacy, like we're here to stay. This works. And I brought up McShin, I brought up like Georgia Council,
yeah.
so many other, places that have been doing this for quite some time, that it works. But in California, still, they're like, we don't know. Because
Yeah.
they have peers working in positions where they're not giving the power to the peer to actually help. Like
Mm,
people that try to get hired with us, or ask about, getting employed, say, I worked for the county, I worked for, this organization, that organization, and they say we help, but they don't let us help,
yeah.
uh, because it's not meeting people where they're at. So we get to go out, and work with other community based organizations and go visit, the people that are living under the bridge, people in the embankments, go meet people where they're at.
Mhm.
And group peer support has been a good one for us. to be able to get it in a bigger space. So, and we also do things like we do the recovery yoga, we do breath work, we just did a Mighty Princess run.
Wait,
That was
wait,
great.
wait. What is that?
It
Can
was
we do this?
it was a 5K, like, they were putting it on already. Like you bought a ticket and it went to feed the hungry. So one ticket fed 20 people. So there was like 9 of us women, the Happier Life Project representing, and we ran this 5K obstacle course in the mud. It
Wait, but were there ball gowns involved? Because that's what I'm picturing. I'm
we had
picturing ball.
we had crowns.
Okay, that's cool. Okay, because I'm picturing ball gowns and like glass slippers here, and not
No,
5Ks. I'm thinking more like 1K. But okay.
no, we had these little crowns and stuff. It was so much fun.
Oh,
There's
that sounds like fun.
Instagram and Facebook, I think. But we had a really, really good time, like just community, just getting together and doing things with other like minded people
Hmm.
is really important. I remember when I first connected to the 12 steps, like it wasn't like the sobriety that got me, it wasn't these steps that got me. It was the fact that I had a host of friends. Like,
Yeah,
I didn't care where I came from or what I was thinking, or how I did things. Like, they still were there. And that was like, wow, this
yeah.
like real. And that's what kept me coming back, honestly.
It's funny you say that. I recently got a new home group, in a 12-step fellowship, and that was probably about a month ago. And for the last 2 weeks, I haven't had my car, which means I kind of took the slack or easy way of not and just saying, oh, I can't go to the home group instead of asking for a ride or whatever, blah blah blah, or walking because I'm actually walking distance, but that's a whole nother lazy story. And I have a tiny resentment that I haven't heard one thing from one of my home group members saying, "Hey, where have you been?" And I'm like, "Ugh, I just started this new home group and they don't know me yet." Because my last home group, like we were buddy buddies, and anyway, it's the community part, right? And it's like, okay, now I'm going to show up tomorrow. We meet two times a week. I'll show up tomorrow, and maybe I'll just throw some shade because ego. But but you're right though. It's like when you walk into a meeting and it's like people are laughing, and people are hugging, and I'm not really a hugger. We're huggers around here. I've had to kind of grow into that, and I make it a point to be more of a hugger when I'm not, because there's a it is an important, but I also make it a point to be asking permission too. That's extremely important to me. I don't like it when people don't ask me permission, but I love what you say about this community that I'm building because yeah, we'll cry a little bit and yeah, there'll be a lot of sad times too, but walking into a space you know where we may not have the exact background together, but we have all these we have one story, with different variants, lying through it, going through it, and we could come in and still find something to laugh at,
Yeah.
still find that energy to keep going and still find the energy to sit down and share a cup of coffee and a silly story with somebody, and it is a beautiful thing, whether it's a 12-step meeting, a recovery dharma, or any, whatever kind of community, safe, sober community you find, or a safe community. I do want to acknowledge the non abstinence-based recovery pathways, but finding those things and finding that community is so important, and I love that. It's when I get to meet people like you, and I get to meet people who are running RCOs throughout the country, and talk about these things. It's like it's a common thread. It really is, and I'm so grateful.
Thank you. Yeah, we're looking forward to growing and really, setting the pace for Southern California, for RCOs, and it really is about community, not just in recovery, but like everybody needs to recover from something, and we all can connect. Like, I really believe, we are all one, and whether you're not directly affected, you're affected in one way, shape, or form, and by this thing called life, the human experience,
Yeah.
and community and connection is where it's at, I think,
You, it's it is actually, I guess, time to start landing the plane here, but You mentioned earlier, I just want to touch on one thing you mentioned a while back. You talked about the staff here and our participants, and one thing I want to acknowledge because we had a board meeting last night is just how incredible and powerful our board is. And not just because they bring money. I mean, I don't know what they do as far as money wise goes, and that was just fine. I don't need to know that kind of stuff. What I know is that like the board meeting was happening across the hall from my office last night, and I didn't. I waited around for my car not to see them. In fact, I usually try to duck out before I see them, and I say that knowing that a couple of board members watch the show all the time. So I'm saying that, Debbie, I love you. I'm so glad I got to see you, and Marta, who's a former board member who watches the show, I'm so glad I get to see you and talk to you because we just have this incredibly impactful group of people. We have a board over here and an advisory council, and all of these people who come with fresh eyes every month. Well, more than every month, really, but they come actually physically here every month with fresh eyes and fresh perspective for us, and keep us, keep us in that hope and in that space of being of service and being of help to the next sick and suffering. And I think that's where you are too, and I really love that for you. So
No, absolutely. The board members that are with us, like none of this would be possible without them. I mean, we are basically, the founding board, the governing board, the working board. Like we're
yeah.
right. Like we received our designation in September, right? Like we are in May. We've been plugging away at it and made huge strides in laying the foundation. They're phenomenal women, and I love them to death. It just is like um and we look forward to growing, and growing the board and stepping down and allowing other people, like you said, fresh faces, new ideas, just people that are really in it, to be able to step up and contribute to the organization is crucial to and vital to its survival.
That's awesome. Do you have anything you want to say to close us off here?
um well, I've said
That probably was it.
Oh, I've said a lot. No, no. Thank you so much for having me. This is my first podcast ever. I'll say that. And thank you to McShin for everything and extending your organization, your staff, everything that you do
Hmm.
for our SEALs like us that are new to learn and to grow from seeing you guys. And thank you for having me here. I appreciate
um, our guest today. Oh, Carolina, I didn't even tell you this. I forgot. Our largest audience, and you're gonna laugh at this. Our largest audience is actually people who are currently incarcerated.
it. Nice. I
I
love
I it's my favorite thing that we're able to do. I mean, all the jail work that we do is my favorite work. This is where we're able to get in where we can't get in, and
it.
so we're on tablets all across the country.
Wow. I
It's
love that.
yeah.
Oh my
Um,
gosh, amazing.
I love I do I it is amazing, and it's not my idea. I'm so glad it happened, and we're going to expand and do and get more and more, but we give it away for free. It's like we just do this thing. So I'm so grateful to have you today.
Thank you. One of the things that I love about Miction is that the fact that you guys can go within the walls and you deliver what you do, which is so vital and necessary. And we're working toward that here in California as well. We're a little bit behind in the times in that sense, but like that's where it's at, Like I feel like the moments that I was incarcerated were the times when I was actually able to learn and dive into and digest and really soak in a lot of things that actually have helped me now. It may have taken a little while, but I'm able to reach back into those things that I did learn while I was incarcerated, that I did reach out to, that I did read, that I did follow, that I did learn and actually apply it to my life today.
Yeah, pretty cool, isn't it?
It
We
is.
get we get to do some neat stuff. So, our guest Carolina Ayala today with the Happier Life Project in California, and I know there's going to be some really cool things to hear going in the future. To hear from you, Carolina. Any way that we can help out, I love you and come back on the show. But thank you for being our guest today. So,
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Justin, for all the hard work you do over there, my friend. And
Absolutely.
um,
Thanks,
It is
Justin.
it is what, just noon over there for you, isn't it?
It is 12:01.
Well, happy after or good afternoon, and
Yep.
we will see you later, everybody. And stay in the herd. We will see you on Thursday at 2 p.m. All right, everybody. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks,
Bye.
Carolina.
Bye. Thanks.